Hey everyone, this is Andrew Vargas, Southern California real estate agent. I'm excited with my guests here today because their role can either directly or indirectly impact homeowners. So that being said, council member, if you can please introduce yourself.
Hey Andrew, thanks for having me. My name is Manuel Chavez. I'm a council member in Costa Mesa, District 4.
Very nice. And how long have you been a council member now?
So I was elected in December of 2018. So I believe that puts me at a year and 5 months, almost
Okay.
6 months. Yeah. So still relatively new, but
Yeah.
still awesome to be serving my city.
Good, good. Now, how would you say is maybe one good example of how your role impacts homeowners? Because that's kind of the gist of what we'll talk about today on how council members can, change things with ordinances and things like that.
Yeah. So I think it'd be probably best to start off with like my journey into politics because it kind of ties into that pretty nicely.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I started running for city council because my community in West Costa Mesa was kind of always underserved in the at-large district system we had in the city. And there was really three things I ran on that really affect homeowners in a really important way. So the first one was actually running on improving infrastructure in my district, right? So we were the last one to get all the upgrades in terms of lighting, in terms of the street repairs. That was really critical for me. The second one was improving park access to my district. So we currently are one of the more park-poor neighborhoods in Costa Mesa. We only have 2 current open parks, and they both don't have a lot of green space. So that was another reason I wanted to run. And then the last one, which we've already accomplished, I'm very proud to say, is to solve the homelessness crisis we had in Costa Mesa. So all those three things, the homelessness, the infrastructure, and the park access are, if you're a homeowner, really important for your property value. So it's funny how I didn't really run on that reason on preserving or raising people's property values, but my goals kind of aligned with that if you're a seller or you want to see your property, be a bit more profitable, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can see that because what you essentially you're doing is you're adding value to people's lives through those measures, right? So with the less homeless population, it's a safer community, right? Improvement of infrastructure, and then like those bike paths that you were talking about, and the improvement of parks, again, adds value to people. And over time, the residents talk about it on how they like what you're doing and how the city is evolving and getting better day by day. But more people will want to, they get gravitated towards your city, and essentially they buy homes, they go to parks, they go to restaurants, bars, and that's revenue for the city through the sales tax and other measures as well. So yeah, I definitely can see why that was so important for you.
Yeah, and in a small part too, and I mentioned this kind of in passing, it's like, when I ran, it wasn't really for those reasons, right? But one of the things you notice when you're serving local government is like, if you're doing something right, almost everyone benefits, right? So, these are things I wanted to do for my community because they were lacking when I was growing up. But a positive byeffect is that homeowners live in the area now have a better place to call home, and a more safer environment. And again, their property values will go up. So if they were to choose to sell, they have a better time selling and showcasing the awesome amenities they have in Costa Mesa.
Great. And so essentially you saw a void in your city or for that district that you belong to, and that's why you got into politics and became a council member. So congratulations. Didn't you break a record of some sort in the city?
Yeah. So yeah, a couple actually. So in Costa Mesa, I am actually the youngest ever council member. So I got elected when I was 23. That's a really big deal.
Very young.
Alongside that, yeah, thank you. Alongside that, I'm also the youngest in all Orange County currently.
Wow.
And I say currently because it can always change, but for the time being, that's my bragging by 1 year. And then the last one, which is big for my community, is I'm actually one of the first Latinos on city council ever. So once again, like my run was not to run for these accolades. It was just because I saw a need in my community. But it's always kind of interesting to remember, like, what I'm doing really embodies the community, right? I'm someone who's homegrown. This is my home. I'm really doing it for my community. So it's always nice to recall those accolades alongside that.
Good. I'm very glad. And I've always loved Costa Mesa because I went to the community college there at OCC before I transferred to the university. So I've always, been there. I've really liked it. And, I wanted to also ask you if you can explain the district. Where exactly does it lie? I know it's not in the OCC district, but if you can kind of maybe mention that.
Yeah. So in a
street.
brief nutshell, if you know Costa Mesa, yeah, it's going to be west of Harbor, south of the Costa Mesa Golf Course, east of Placentia, and then north of 17th Street. So it's really like a box.
Okay.
And it's the most dense district in Costa Mesa. And it's also majority Latino district. But I want to take a plug here because this is my city and I want to just promote it all I can. It's also a great example of like why we need districts in Costa Mesa, because our city is so eclectic in so many different ways, right? Like you have the part that you know best, right? Near OCC, where it's like, a few single family homes mixed with like housing for students. You have my district that's primarily Latino and really dense. You have Mesa Verde up in the northeast that has their own country club and a lot of single family home tracks, combined with east side Costa Mesa, more eclectic old school part of Costa Mesa before there was zoning. We have all these like interesting homes. So I feel like for us, the cities, districts are a really good way to make sure everyone has a voice on the council. And it's really cool because, you get more different points of view and perspectives. And I know you're a big fan of the Socratic method. So anytime you have a chance to challenge your point of view and like compare with others, it's a really good thing for the city overall.
And that totally makes sense too, that you guys break down the city into these districts. Like you were saying, they're all a little bit different. And thank you for mentioning the Socratic method. I always like to challenge my hypothesis, and it always is evolving. And I think that's why you benefit your constituents and I'm able to benefit my clients. And what I wanted to ask you, just in case for those that may not know, can you explain what a council member does? Like what your role is day to day and in general?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, we do really three main things, right? We handle the budget of the city. We design the zonings, right? So like once every 10 years, we can design where we want to upzone, where we want to change zoning for. And the last thing we really do is provide or pass ordinances, right? These are laws the cities pass. Alongside all these three things, of course, we're always trying to take input from the community, but in a general sense, as simple as you can put it, we manage the money, we decide what gets built where, and we pass laws.
Got it. Wow. Okay. And how does your role intersect with the city mayor? How does the council members work together with the mayor?
Yeah. No, great question. So I'll begin with a little caveat in saying that we're a general city in Costa Mesa, so we follow the California state general city plan. In those city plans for general cities, which are about 75% of all cities in California, the mayor is first amongst equals, right? So the city council and the mayor each have one vote. So no one's more powerful than each other in that regard. But the main difference is the mayors run the meetings. So they get the gavel to tell you when to be quiet if you're going too long or keep order in the room. And they, alongside the city manager who runs the city for the city council, they're the ones who shape the agenda. So in other words, they decide what goes first on what order. They decide if you're going to wait a week or put it on now. They're the ones that really decide what the order of the agenda is. So most of the times people know their mayor because it's the most common thing. And they're probably the best point person to go to because they know most of the general stuff. But really, they're just a council member with more responsibilities.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Like you were saying, they run the meetings and things like that with the city manager. So like when a resident of your district wants to come up with a new ordinance or the proposal, or wants to change things or doesn't agree with a proposal you want to pass, do they go to these council member meetings, or what do you guys call them? City council meetings? Is the mayor there, city manager there?
Yeah, so once that happens, there's so many different approaches, right? And it can depend on the person and what their style is. General rule of thumb, it's always great to speak at your city council meetings. As I always say, like that's the time we have everyone in the council and the big staff players in City Hall all in the same room. So a lot of times residents will come and mention issues. For example, right now we're getting a lot of speeding issues, right? Because of, no one's really out in the streets.
Everyone's going fast, I've noticed.
Everyone's going fast, yeah. So someone had a comment in my district about that last council meeting we had. So I got on staff immediately at the meeting and said, hey, this is my street. I had mentioned this problem before to city staff. We had looked into it and I said, hey, let's tend to put a bit more pressure on this one item because now people are mentioning it on the public discourse, right? It's always good to have that ability if you feel comfortable doing so. One more great way, if you have an idea or something you want to see change, is just find out who your member of council are and email them or call them. You know, I do my best to respond to every email, do my best to respond to every phone call because, again, my job in democracy is really to be your representative, right? So my job is to make sure I represent you, because if I don't, in 4 years' time, when my terms of re-election, you can vote me out if I'm not doing a good job in your opinion. So there's a lot of ways to have input, and I think the biggest thing I would tell homeowners, anyone who wants to get involved or wants to have input, is just shoot them the email. And if they don't respond to the email, just go to council meeting and mention your comment because your voice matters and your voice is important.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I always tell my clients, you know, aside from the house itself, the neighborhood, you know, maybe the local shops that you like to go to, your driving distance from your work, you really should know who's representing you in the city council, because at the end of the day, that's going to impact your day-to-day life. So I think that's very important what you said. Can you also explain a little bit of how the Board of Supervisors and the State Assembly kind of interact? I know it's like a droplet of body of, into, you know, in a body of water, a droplet comes in, it's the ripple. So it's the district council member, then it's the city mayor and the council members all together, Board of Supervisors for the county, and then the entire state. So if you can kind of go run into that a little bit, you can explain that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I wish people asked it more often because it really demonstrates the beauty of America in some ways, of how much we have bodies in different areas, right? So as you know, I'll use Orange County for example. We have many cities in Orange County, and they all fall under the jurisdiction of Orange County. So Orange County has their own council member, if you could say, their board of supervisors. They have 5 of them, and each have a district, right? So it's really important to understand the difference of what we do and what they do. So in some senses, city councils are kind of the entry level, like front desk version. So like we handle most of the local issues, like noise complaints, like you know, you have an issue with trash pickup, maybe someone isn't picking up trash cans, you call us. We're really like the lower level of government. The county is a bit great above us, and they're the ones who get the most funding from the state. Sorry, from Congress, right? So a lot of you may know about the CARE funding, right? The coronavirus act that was recently passed. Yeah, that money all went to the county, and the county disperses it as they see fit. So it's really important to have good ties to people in other levels of government, because they make it a bit easier to get help if you need help with a certain kind of funding. So for example, like the county and us work closely on homelessness. I wish we could work closer on homelessness, quite frankly, but because they had the funds, right? So they can allocate money for homelessness to certain cities. Recently, we haven't gotten much funding in Costa Mesa because our shelter is only for Costa Mesa residents at the time being, and they're focusing more on regional shelters. So it just shows you, right, the importance of knowing what body does what, because, you know, if someone's complaining to us about the price of the shelter, I would say, thank you for complaining, I'm with you. Let's go together to talk to the county board supervisors and ask them for more funding. The state government in California works a bit closer with us because we're more directly tied under them. So I will say that I'm really blessed to have a great friendship with our member of assembly, Cody Petrie Norris, because she's actually been able to get us grant funding for parks in my district, right? So this last budget, she gave us almost $1 million for a park improvement project in my district. So we're using that money to make a new park in my community that hopefully benefit my residents, right? So it's really important to know that, like, your council member is your first point of contact, and it always should be. And they may have to help your help and company people that are above us get more funding. Because the thing to always remember and realize is this: like, the beautiful thing about democracy is that it gives power to people to have a voice. So if there's something that I need help with and that you need help with, odds are if we work together, we can get more funding from the state or from the county.
I think we have a bit of a lag on my end. I think you froze on me. There you are.
Yes, I went a little black there. I'm back, yeah.
It's okay. If you can kind of, I don't know if the recording got what you said, but maybe if you can kind of try and go back about what you were just saying, maybe 35 seconds ago.
Yeah. So in a simple form, it's really important to know to always talk to your council member, because they may need your help as a resident on getting more voices for a certain issue. So I always think it's a general good rule of thumb to, as you said, Andrew, to know your council member and to reach out to them on issues, because sometimes they may need your help to elevate their voice for you.
Yep. I find that role that you have is very important, like you were just saying, because you work directly with your constituents within that district, within the city, and it makes sense that you voice their opinions, and you get to tell the board of supervisors and things like that. It goes up in that chain of command. But what I also wanted to ask you too is, I had a situation in Los Angeles where I went to a neighborhood meeting, and a bunch of residents were very upset, expressing their concerns to Councilmember David Ryu up in Hollywood Hills. And they were basically upset with the house parties, because they were basically all rentals, and there was a lot of ruckus going on. And this wasn't just happening once in a while. It was happening almost every weekend. And the problem with that they were expressing, and then from my viewpoint too, being present there, is not only is it annoying, right? It also diminishes the home price values over time. And the reason why I say that is because the residents, obviously they live there, it's not really going to affect them because they're not transacting. But if it becomes a something that everybody knows outside of that neighborhood, that hey, that neighborhood's known to be a party place where a bunch of home rentals are, maybe not the safest, people won't want to buy there, and the demand will come down and the prices will come down a bit. So how would you address something like that if someone was asking you questions for that? Because a lot of my clients, that's very important to them, their neighborhood. So if you can kind of explain that.
No, that's almost a bread and butter issue. Not in that it's not important, but in that that's what we're designed to address, right? Those localized issues that maybe, I don't want to say too small because they're obviously important, but are really focused for your city you're in. So in my district, that issue is like speeding, for example. So I'll rely more on that, but I'll try to contaminate both as I speak. So when an issue arises up, the first thing you should do is what that group did, was talk to the council member, let them know what the issue is, right? Because a lot of times, we walk our communities. I do that every day. I try to walk every day in my district, but unless someone tells me what's going on, I often won't know, right? Because sometimes you don't see these things because I walk in the day, not at night. So it's really critical to reach out to your council members, via email, via meetings. Personally, I think the most effective way is to do like a one-on-one meeting or a group meeting like that, because then as a council member, we're able to discuss things a bit more deeply, and perhaps they're already working on it, but they'll need your help to go a little further. So on that issue of like noise ordinances, right? What we do in Costa Mesa, and this is mainly because I have a good tie with our police chief in the city, and I always try to have good ties with everyone I can, is I might mention on a council meeting on the dais and say, hey, there's been some complaints about noise in this street in my district. Is it possible that the police chief can give us an update on it next week and see what's going on, right? You kind of encourage staff to focus a bit more on this issue. In terms of your residents in Hollywood Hills, that could be more of an ordinance kind of situation, right? Where maybe we need to look into either curtailing or limiting the number of rental units we have in a certain area, right? That hasn't been an issue in Costa Mesa, but I know, for example, in San Clemente, Newport Beach, they have those kind of ordinances because that fits their city's needs. So it's always important to raise these concerns, because as a council, we can then look at all the options and say, how can we best approach this? Is it going to be as simple as getting more patrol down the area? Do we need to do an ordinance and get into law? That tends to be a bit more costly, because of course they're going to sue us as a city about that, because they're a business and you want to operate a business. But the state California has a lot of ordinances, a lot of like state precedent that's really in place to protect homeowners and residents, right?
That's good.
And one of those things is like, we can't try these options unless you tell us. So in a nutshell, just tell us the problems, and I promise you we'll address them.
So it's not very difficult to essentially get a meeting with you or other council members if someone just reaches out and takes the proper measures to sit down with you and express their concerns, right?
Yeah, it's not too difficult. the most difficult thing might actually be just getting it scheduled, because some of us, council in Costa Mesa isn't a full-time job, right? So all of us have our
Okay.
part-time jobs, or our full-time jobs, and this is our part-time
And then-
job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I know in Costa Mesa, like we currently have like 2 lawyers in the dais. We have a retired cop. We have an urban planner. We have 2 scientists actually, and then you have me who's in sales. So like, it's a bunch of people that have different backgrounds. So just reach out to us. We'll do our best to make sure you fit in our schedule, or we'll work around you. I always say that my phone is my my office space. So if you give me a text or a call, I'll get hold of you as soon as I can. But definitely reach out. I mean, the way you understand it as a resident and homeowner is your voice matters so much to your city's discourse. And if you're willing to take that leap and just ask for help, odds are you can get the help. So just go ahead and ask us.
And then how do you reach out to your constituents? What do you normally do? Do you, aside from the how do you reach out to them? What do you normally do on a monthly basis?
Yeah. So it's a couple of things, and I'll break it down from like pre-COVID to post-COVID, because that really changed a lot of things about things.
There's a lot of change. Yeah.
Yeah. So pre-COVID, it was really like emails, phone calls was the main form. I would do my best to always go to local PTA meetings in my district, just because, again, like I said, my district is a lot of like apartment owners and apartment dwellers, and they're not the most politically engaged sometimes. So I would kind of meet them where they're at and where their kids are in their schools. I would go on my daily walks just to do the scouting around. Sometimes people know who I am, sometimes they don't. And then post-COVID, what I've been doing more now is just trying to use my Facebook platform a bit more for sharing information, and then joining on the Facebook Lives we have with City of Costa Mesa. So, these are spaces where we become available for almost office hours, and for half of the time we'll do a topic like a COVID update or an update on like what the parks are going to be doing, and then half the time is devoted to questions. So I do my best to be available within my schedule. Sometimes it isn't as convenient because I do work a 9 to 6 job, but overall, the thing I want to read to everybody is just don't be afraid to email or call your council members. We really are here to support you. And again, and I can't really stress this enough. The founding fathers gave us a really big gift of elections, right? So if you feel like they're not being responsive, you can always vote them out. And
vote them out.
Yeah, and that's kind of not a fear, but it's almost a motivation we have as well to make sure we're doing our best for our community.
Mm-hmm. And I think with your background in sales, that definitely helps you know how to manage people, and like you were saying, have a good relationship with your chief of police and things like that. It's all comes down to that customer service aspect of things, and really knowing who to talk to essentially benefit your constituents. So that's really good. And speaking of COVID, what's the latest on Costa Mesa? How are you guys handling this? I saw Michael Bloomberg on Instagram posted about Costa Mesa, how you guys are opening up the economy in different phases. If you can kind of go into that a little bit.
Yeah. So, oh gosh, that can go forever. But yeah, so I'll first begin with the biggest thing we're proud of. I'm like, oh gosh, that could be its own like hour-long segment. But
okay, yeah.
In a brief nutshell, right? So I'll first start off with the facts of Costa Mesa, and then I'll go into our plan to reopen Costa Mesa, right? So the first thing that's going on is we're actually one of the lowest per capita in the county for COVID cases. That's something we're very, very proud of in Costa Mesa.
That's great.
We were a bit proactive in being a bit faster than the county when it came down to closing down. Reason why was, you may recall this or may not, back in February, we actually sued Governor Gavin Newsom and President Donald Trump over use of a facility in Costa Mesa for housing COVID-19 patients, right? And
I heard
reason
about
why
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So reason why we sued.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I had some of my clients in Costa Mesa were actually very happy that you did that. But go on.
Yeah, no, and again, it was all for the community, right? So reason why we sued real briefly was there's a state-owned property in Costa Mesa right near my district, right in the middle of the golf course, which is called Fairview Developmental Center, right? It's a state-owned property that's now vacant, and the state for a lot of years was wanting to use that area for a homeless shelter. They deemed it as incompatible with that vision. But when we got the first cases of COVID-19, President Trump and Gavin Newsom decided to put people there with the coronavirus. And we didn't sue saying you can't do that. We sued saying, hey, you're not including us in the conversation. Like, this is in our city jurisdiction. Like, please include us in the conversation. So, we went to court. Day in court happened. A lot came out into fruition. The federal court, Judge Selma, really said to the federal government and state government, hey, I'm not going to rule in favor of Costa Mesa, because if I do that, it creates federal precedent of cities beating the state and federal government, which I don't want to do. But I will encourage you guys to meet, and then a week later we'll convene and discuss the plan. So what happened was we met for a week. The state decided that, hey, it wasn't worth the hassle because we had a lot of concerns about the property and they couldn't address them. So they said, you know what, we're going to wait and take a longer time assessing this, and then we'll go forward. So that gave us a kind of a month in advance of time to know how contagious this disease was, because we learned about these facts in the court cases, right? Because you can't lie in front of a judge. So we had a bit of head start to know how contagious this disease was, so we should have a bit faster. So our cases are really low, which is good. And that brings me to the point of the phase 2, right? So you guys may heard a lot about phase 2, a lot about how, like, the phase 1 was really containing the curve. So during this time period, the state of California was focusing on creating more hospital beds in case there was a surge in cases. And it was focusing a lot on making sure we have proper equipment and proper testing, right? So we're kind of in this phase now as a county and as a state where we've kind of actually flattened the curve, right? This isn't to say the disease isn't out there. It just means to say that we can accommodate people if they do get sick. And we're now moving forward a new part of reopening the economy, essentially. So one thing as a council we decided to do was, let's work together with all stakeholders in Costa Mesa, right? With residents, with council members, with labor groups, with business owners, both big and small, and come up with a plan so that when the county says, hey, we're going to open up X, Y, and Z sectors, everyone already knows what that plan is, right? So we're preparing ahead. And that's called Restore Costa Mesa. We'll play on restore as in like renovate, and also like go back to the stores. So everyone in council got assigned an area. My area naturally was the parks. So, one thing I'm very proud to say is we decided early on that park space was something we wanted to give residents access to. So we are opening the parks up for active use. So like if you're walking through the park, if you're walking through a trail, you can't stop, of course, because we want to discourage gatherings, but you can use the parks, right? I have members of council who are focusing on food distribution. So we've had 2 so far, partnering with IKEA and local churches in the district in the city, where we give out food every 2 weeks in IKEA parking lot because they're empty and they want to do good for the community, right? The mayor is working with state government and bigger groups and smaller groups on reopening stores, right? So we had a really big success story where we had a local shop open up their retail space, right, to buy clothes in a safe, appropriate way. So we're trying to do our best to make sure everyone is safe. Of course, that's our first concern. We also understand the need that until there's a vaccine, this isn't going to go away. So we have to give residents and business owners the opportunity to operate business in a safe manner. So that's really our goal with this. And yeah, it's been going good so far. I mean, we're hearing a lot of feedback and criticism, so we take all of that and reassess it. But our real goal is to make sure that residents are safe and that business can open up in a safe manner.
Well, congratulations on opening up the parks. I think that's a really good idea to have people stay active and get out of their homes. As long as you said they're not stopping, they're in a movement period. And that's good that you're listening to your constituents, all the council members, the mayor, and you're reassessing the situation if need be. And that just goes to show that representation, not only from the statewide, but just even from a small city and district, is so important. Like you were giving that example previously about the lawsuit against Gavin Newsom. And if the city didn't have representation for the residents there, they'd be out of luck. So just goes to show how important your role is and why homeowners should really, really know who's representing them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, we're definitely a resource to be used. And you know, I don't have a segue for this. I kind of just mentioned it right now because
Go
we
for
didn't
it.
actually discuss it earlier. But for example, like one of the things that I'm really in favor of is, again, my area is very much a dense area, so there's not a lot of housing opportunities for people to own homes, right? So we're always looking
Hmm.
for ways to incentivize home ownership in my area and give residents who own land but may have a bit extra land ways to go. So like one thing I'm working on in my city is we're working on doing a speed line process for ADUs, accessory dwelling units, right? So
Yeah,
I know before you had a topic on this video on this topic, but you
correct.
know, we want to do our best as a city to make sure that we can hit multiple like goals in one action, right? So what I'm working with city staff on, and it's been kind of paused through the whole crisis, but we want to have a streamlined process where if you own a lot and you want to do an ADU, we'll give you like 5 options. Say, hey, if you pick one of these 5 options or models, we'll streamline your review process. And again, this is all in name of giving homeowners more access to raise their property value and promote homeownership in my district. So,
Yeah.
you know, if you have any idea or anything, just hit us up. We're always willing to learn and grow.
No, I'd love to. Like I was telling you earlier, as soon as this COVID situation subsides a bit more, definitely want to meet with you and talk shop about real estate and how we can benefit the community and things like that. I like what you're doing about the ADU to streamline that process. I was talking to the architectural designer, Fernando, like you said in my other video. And that's a really good way to, build more housing supply, right? Because the supply is so low for many reasons we won't get into, but that definitely helps that situation. And then homeowners can also get some revenue streams. So it's definitely good what you're doing, and I'm excited to eventually. You never know, we may work together on something in the future. Same thing with other council members. I might jump into politics in the future as well. So who knows? But I appreciate your time, and really like to have you on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. It's been a great video, great time.
Yeah. All right, man. Talk to you later.
All right, later.